Happy Monday.
Hey, thanks for listening to Carlie's Couch.
We appreciate you. You're
As
loyal.
always.
As always. Hope you're having a beautiful week, whatever day it is that you're listening.
But hopefully it is before 2020. If you're new to this, cool. But today we are going to talk about some things that we've experienced and things that we are seeing, have seen, that we think we need to leave in 2019. In fact, we're pretty sure. So whenever you're listening to this, whether it's 2019 still, 2020, or 2048, please don't be doing these things. Thank you.
Please and thank you. So guess what? First, I also want to shout out a review. We love when y'all leave us reviews. 5 stars only, of course, the best. But especially whenever y'all have time, if it's so on your heart to write something. And so this one says, "These women are everything. One of my favorite podcasts. I love how well these two complement one another. They're both so different, but so wise." So shout out to Kiara Imani Will.
Oh, thank you for leaving us that review. Appreciate it as always. And if you haven't left one yet, please do. And if you're listening to any of these episodes and you feel like they could be applicable to other people that you know, feel free to share, send them the link, tell them listen to it in the car, whenever, and help us grow. We'd appreciate that as well.
Greatly, greatly. So, Lex, what are we leaving behind in 2019?
Well, a few things. So I think, first of all, there are some different ways that I have grown in this last year. And one of those is about, and it's around validation. Not saying that I feel like I was living for everybody else necessarily, or on social media and any of those things, like for like 100%, like, oh my gosh, please say something to me or look at me or whatever. But I've just really gotten a lot quieter in the last year. And a lot of my things that I was thinking kind of come from that. So for me, one of the first ones that I'm going to talk about actually is just doing more than you're talking. And I related that kind of to social media because I think a lot of scrolling on social media is about how I'm going to do this, or I'm about to do this, or working on this. And I think it's fine to say those things. But, you know, now and this year, I've started more often as I'm about to talk about something or say something, say like, why am I saying this? And like, instead of saying that, why not do it? And I'd also notice that a lot of times if I'm talking about things, I'm not even really getting to it then. Like, you really feel good after you talked about it, kind of hyping yourself up. And so one is for sure to act more than you're talking.
I like that a lot. And that's, I think, a big one for myself included, is making sure that I'm not hyping, man, today I'm going to do all of these things. And even for my to-do list on a small level, like not even social media, but smaller things for myself. Like I got 69 things on my to-do list and I end up doing 3. It's like, no, fool, you knew you weren't going to do all of those things today. So do what you said you were going to do. And so that's, I definitely think, a big one. In the same vein, another one is making sure like you're not just getting high off of inspiration. And like Alexia kind of alluded to earlier, it's like you talk about these things and you get so hyped, man, all these things I'm going to do this year. And you get so hyped and then you go take a nap and then you wake up and then you don't do anything else. Not like there's anything wrong with naps, but if you just get high off of the inspiration and off of the feeling of things, of thinking what you're going to do, or of ideating, which I love, thinking of big ideas and thinking about everything that's possible. Like that's amazing, but do not get stuck in inspiration. Like it's not like just a high of inspiration and then go back to doing nothing. And then I need to listen to Tony Robbins to get high again and then come back down. And then Eric Thomas and then come back down. Make sure that there's something that's sustaining that in the middle.
Right. And as you're getting to at the end, it's making sure you're not procrastinating by always reading some self-help stuff or always listening to podcasts and, doing those things, like always chasing to feel motivated, when really you have to kind of bring your passion and bring the motivation to these things that you're doing sometimes. So that's a big thing for sure to note. Another thing that has to do with social media too, so I'm going to skip down to this one, is social media is a weird place, and nothing is like off bounds really, like it's just not, right? And we kind of have some rules, but then every once in a while they get broken anyway, right? The code, I guess. But one thing that I notice a lot of is with pictures and videos that are online, you know, people pulling their phones out to take pictures of somebody or video of somebody to then put it online, whether it's like jokes or honestly, whether it just turns into like a meme or something, right? Like a picture of a kid who, you know, is making an expression or whatever. I just really think that is too much of it. And I'm starting to see like how it's affecting a lot of people, whether they're the person in the video, or whether it's just like, why are we like when you sit down and think about like how weird am I that I see something and I'm pulling my phone out to like record somebody to then laugh about like with the rest of like, you know what I mean? The world is kind of weird. So I feel like we need to give people way more privacy, one, and then B, that we need to make sure like people know like when you're taking pictures of them or recording them for something, instead of just doing stuff, whether it's for shits and giggles or honestly, even whether it's good. Like, don't ever give me $1 million check and have your phone out. You know what I mean? Like, I just think that's a lot. So being more aware of how you put other people in these spaces online without their approval or awareness of it.
I think that that's super important. And I mean, sharing.
I didn't even mean for that to turn into like a speech like that, but
I mean, but it's real. And I mean, I see a lot of it. You see a lot of stuff of people like making fun of people in the gym and things. And because I work in the gym, I think about that firsthand. But don't dare.
And even if that was your clients, right? Like if there's somebody, if you work with people and you're like recording them and stuff, sometimes it's like, that's kind of weird too. Like, you know what I mean? They didn't tell you put their weight loss journey online. Like that's something you need to talk to them about.
Exactly. And so they sign like a waiver that says that it's okay. But then I've had certain clients tell me like, I'm not comfortable with that. And so I avoid them in the videos. Y'all don't know if they be working out with me because I never share them. And so I think it's important to make sure that you have that consent. But also if you are just like taking a picture of someone in the locker room to make fun of them or to do something, like that's some internal work, dog. Work on that.
Yeah. And I mean, every once in a while too, like I'll see something and I'm like, man, and maybe I'll text somebody about it, like, or have like a convo or a joke or whatever. But it's just like to put people online is wild now. It's just too much now. And personally, like I'm also one of those people, I don't even think I'm like going to want to put my kids online and like, you know, making a profile for your babies and your dogs and, you know, whatever you do, that's your decision. But just being very wary of even putting my own stuff up there like that. Stalking is real.
Bruh.
Like,
I used your story the other day about like how somebody noticed something in a picture and then found that like
I saw him recently, actually too. That's a whole other story. But like, this is real. It's real. So be careful about what you're putting online. And it seems like it's elementary. Also, now we're seeing all this stuff about the sex trafficking, which I don't think is anything new. And I think that's just like a buzz thing that now the news wants to talk about, but it is very real. But there's just so many like stories of just like people out here who are using particular like tweets to get your information to scam you or to see where you are and all kinds of stuff. Like, and it's not even just kids. So we need to be aware of it as well. But just not being part of the circus, like of always trying to throw in like material, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I just don't like when like my timeline just turns into like we're just roasting and talking about random people's lives. But that's just personally why I've gotten more quiet. So
yeah, and I can see that. I feel like mine is too. Another thing that I think I'm like, oh, all of these are so good. So I'll go to, because y'all know I'm the quote master. I be fucking them up, but I love quotes. I read a quote that says, "Nature does not hurry, yet everything is accomplished," by Lao Tzu. Probably mispronounced that, but I tried. And I think this is so important because when you do have a big vision or a big purpose for your life, or you want to do so many things, or you have your hands in a lot of pots, it can get overwhelming and you can be scrambling around trying to do all of these things and it starts to become overwhelming. And now you're rushing and quality can suffer and you're letting things fall by the wayside. And so just pause for a moment and think about like nature, just look at it seriously. Like flowers, they bloom in their own time. They die in their own time. They come back. If you have an orchid, like those things die and then they'll come back or not, depending on if you know how to properly water them. But just taking a hint from nature and realizing that everything will get done. Like stop driving yourself crazy, scrambling around, being stressed, having all of this frenetic energy for no reason.
I think that is powerful because you're just like radiating extra. It's like you're overworking yourself for no reason. Another thing to leave behind this year is acting like you have everything together, not to be confused with oversharing either, to put that disclaimer in there. But, we can keep it real without like making things up, and we can be real about where we are in the process without being delusional ourselves. I honestly think that sometimes when we talk big or like we're acting like we're doing more than we are, and again, I'm talking about like kind of overdoing it, not necessarily like you should be proud of yourself and like I'm doing like things are going great, I'm working on this and that. Like yes, you are, but y'all know what I'm talking about when it's like going a little overboard. But just kind of making sure that you realize, like, sometimes it's not even like you're trying to impress other people. Sometimes we're like really believing that story, and it's kind of keeping us in the same zone that we're in instead of really like pushing you to work on that, right? Like that kind of fake it till you make it. There's a weird like thin line. So I think it's good that we stop acting like we got it all. Like we stop judging every other little thing when people start talking about money online or jobs or whatever, like it's so much judgment. But like we really all kind of got issues. So leaving all that stuff behind and moving forward in a space where you can really be comfortable in where you are presently for real and presenting that. And I think that's okay.
There's so much power in your story, in your real story, not the one you want people to believe, not who you think you should be, but who you actually are and what you've been through. And so if you're not sharing that, not oversharing, but if you're not sharing that and finding whatever that line is for you, because it looks different for everyone.
And let me give an example of it actually, because
okay. So
we kind of have a base, because this is a real story. But for example, somebody who on social media is... Let's talk about being social media famous and real life broke type thing, right? Okay. Where we're doing a lot, like on social media. It's not just that you're saying like I'm gonna be this and be that, but like you pose in front of somebody's Ferrari, or a real life thing is having a brand partnership, and it looks like you're like the face of something, a brand, and everything looks so good. It's, wow, congratulations, all this and that. But in real life, this person. Like is not really making anything from that. And they are driving Uber, and not that there's anything wrong with that either, right? That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is that you're really presenting a celebrity life where you're actually still like you're really working and you're building things. Talk about the real story and how you're really building, because that's where people really are as well. So it's kind of a missed opportunity, I think, to really connect more with people when you're doing that.
Yeah, and so staying true to yourself and sharing that, because you don't know how powerful it could be for other people or how it could help them change their lives.
And it's almost like you're perpetuating that it's not okay that you're doing these things, right? Like instead of just being like, yo, we're doing all this stuff. And I've said it before too, like people ask me all the time when they're talking to me like, do I do other things or what do I do? Because I think it is important to get the real life story and context of people that you're either working with or want to learn from, instead of presenting as like, oh, I have it all together, I'm an expert on this, and people are coming to you and it's like, no, that's not real, That kind of feeds into a delusion, and that keeps you stuck in place.
Yeah, and I really like the transparency of like thinking like, oh man, I thought you had it all together. And I'm like, nah, fam, like I go to therapy, like I work, I do all of these things to make sure that I can maintain. And this hustle life in LA, being an entrepreneur, trying to start up your own business or brand or whatever you're doing, a lot of times we are working 2 to 3 to maybe even more jobs on the side to make it happen. And so that's why it's like, yeah, I got a whole bunch of hustles. So I think that's important. But on that note, something else to leave behind in 2019 is doing shit just to do it. So being busy is not being productive, and doing shit just to do it is not productive for your purpose or being in alignment either. So moving just to make it look like you're doing something, or I'm always this, or I'm always doing that, it's not important. And I think it ties into our last episode one of our last episodes about your personal philosophy. Like, are the things that you're doing, how you're intentionally spending your time, in alignment with where you want to be and what your personal philosophy is?
And then how would you kind of define when it's like stuff just to do it versus like if you like art and you like this and you like that and you're trying doing different things? What kind of things are like if you're doing it just to be doing something?
And so I think for me, when I'm thinking about tying into alignment and purpose, if I was just like, if I tried training clients, because, I have to have a lot of hustles to be able to fund my business right now. And I really hated training clients, but another gym was like, hey, we have opportunity for you to come train clients here. And I didn't necessarily need that money, but I was like, yeah, I'm gonna be a part of that and do this. And it's like something that I don't quite enjoy.
Like you're not even saying no to anything.
I'm not saying no to anything.
You're trying to do everything.
trying to do everything, but also just doing stuff, like not having any boundaries on how I'm not being intentional with my time.
Okay. So like how you're saying with yours, maybe if you're actually trying to get away from training, but then if somebody gives you the opportunity, you're still like, yeah, I'll do that too. I'll do the more training.
Yeah, that and like
you're not sticking to your bigger intention.
Exactly. Not sticking to that, but also if someone like has a brand and they're like, yo, we want you to model this thing. But it's not in alignment with what I believe in. And, my ass out, nothing wrong with ass being out. Asses are nice, but I don't put mine out there like that. And so that wouldn't be in alignment.
That's a real good example too. Because I just got an email the other day about like, because, everybody wants brand ambassadors and like, oh, register to be a brand ambassador. And I'm like looking at the clothes and it's like, that's just nothing I would do. So like, I can't do that. Like, but I could have, right? Like we could just
we absolutely could. Yeah, but it's also if my name or my face or whatever is attached to it, if I touch it, it's gonna be great. And if I can't guarantee that of quality, or if it's not in alignment, why do these things? Because you'll run yourself real ragged doing a bunch of things that have nothing to do with what you want to do.
Yeah, that's a good one. Another one, and this is one that I for sure have been working on, is leaving behind acting or speaking or just moving, like doing things impulsively, and learning to take more of a pause before you do things, whether it's a pause to pay attention to your own thoughts, whether it's a pause before you respond to the person who's either making you angry or, whatever it may be, or pause before you just do something like irrational or just doing stuff regular. Like for me, I get into this mode where I'm like just doing a million things. I'm moving around just too much. And so it's like, pause, finish this one thing first, then go do the next thing, right? As simple as that. So just pausing more is what we want to do more of. And we want to be a little bit less impulsive.
Yeah. And I like that pause because it keeps you also, if you're working on yourself and self-growth, it keeps you from falling back into habits that you used to have. Like if you got a slick mouth and somebody says something and you snap right back on them, instead this time you pause. You're just like, okay, noted, and just keep it moving instead of letting it mess up your whole day.
Yeah.
Or tripping in traffic, like, tripping when people cut you off in traffic, like losing your whole cool.
Yeah, like this is our like next level in awareness. So we'd spent a lot of time like growing, being a little more aware of these things and our thoughts. And now it's, all right, let's really try to change those things or change whatever it is, right? And so now implementing, this is starting to implement. And just taking that little pause just kind of helps you even more. Just like not do that thing, or the more you're aware of it, you're just more conscious of like how you're moving.
No pause on that? Pause. Pauses actually go with my next one. If situations happen, take a moment to pause and stop over apologizing. Like I noticed that I really have to change my speech, whether it's in business or relationships or pretty much anything, even like out in the street. If somebody bumps into me, excuse me, I'm sorry. Bitch, why am I sorry? Why am I saying that? And I felt like I started giving up my power in situations. And even so simple as if you are running a couple minutes late, like not disrespectfully late and not something that you're doing all the time consistently, but if you're a few minutes late, like, thank you so much for being patient. Instead of like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Oh, this, and then you start over explaining yourself. I'm gonna add over explaining onto this over apologizing one. Just stop. You don't have to do that. Yeah.
This goes well with things like emails as well. It's easier, or it's become more of a habit for me. I might write and use a lot of like you started out apologizing, like that I just got to this or whatever. And after I finish writing, I'll kind of go through like, take out that, take out, some of this language. And we've talked about diminishing language before. But the over apologizing kind of goes with that too. Like even in what you're saying, like going in, like, take that out. Make sure your language is powerful.
Yeah. And just tacking back onto the over explaining. So you say, I'm so sorry for getting back to you so late. You don't have to be like, man, my phone broke, my car broke down. This happened. I delete
that too.
Yeah, no.
I always start writing and I was like, I've been working on this. Like, no, you don't need that.
You do not need that. And also explaining like no is a full sentence. You don't have to over explain. I was feeling like going and this and this and no, just say it. And that is what it is.
Another thing to leave behind in this year, and I know we all have a lot of things going on, is to stop trying to do everything. If you are very interested in a lot of things, I think that's awesome. I think that's good. And this is going to tie into another episode that's coming up in a few weeks. But sometimes you have to stop and really focus on what's that most important thing and really go in, finish that before you're like out here trying to do this organization and this side thing and this other thing and this other thing, to build up, to have the teams to do everything appropriately. So it's not even just saying like don't do everything, but like literally you can't do it all yourself, or a lot of times we can't do but so much ourselves. And so delegate more, have more team. And for now, if there is no team or no delegations, you need to really pay attention to where you need to start and what things you need to start and finish in order to move on and make sure things make sense in a way that you can delegate those things.
So valid. I pride myself on being a superhero, but I am part human. And part of that means that I really can't do everything by myself. And I love to try and run myself ragged and be wasting time and not figuring things out. And so like learning to ask for help and really sitting down once you figure out what that personal philosophy is, figuring out, getting clarity on what that thing is, and really taking time to realize, like to figure out how you can realize and actualize that goal. Stop trying to do everything by yourself. You're going to be tired. Then the last one that we have on the list is important for me. It's kind of a recent thing I've been thinking about. It started when I read an article about moving out of the way of people like on the pavement, for example. And they said like statistically, like most women move, but I think it's white males that move the least for people. And so it's like taking up space. So the thing you'll leave behind is not taking up space. And that is a very physical example. Like when you're walking, like it's okay to have your space, or when you're standing, you might be in line, like you don't have to shrink up into the wall and move. Like you can stand and have your own physical space. How this manifests in other areas is if you don't agree with something at a team meeting, like at your job, ask a question, speak out against it. Let your voice take up space. Let your ideas, let your thoughts take up space. In relationships, ask for what you need. That's okay. Your needs can take up space also. And thinking about what areas of your life you might not feel you deserve to take up space, or you're uncomfortable with it, or you're not quite sure how to do it, and just allowing yourself that space that you need to be, feel, do, say, and act however it is that you need to honor yourself.
I think that's important. And then looking back over the whole list, it's kind of like a lot of the things that we want to do is just be a little bit more action oriented and make sure that we are claiming that power within ourselves. So it seems like it's like, okay, there's a lot of awareness, like we said before, and really like stepping into that. And I think that's a really good way to start a new year. And we can start that whenever, right? Like right now that you're listening to this,
today,
start that. We don't want to see no more other people, kids on the internet. No, yeah, you do need to stop that. But but all of these things we can start doing, right? And this isn't even just necessarily at the end of the year, trying to, just think of things now, but you're continuously like paying attention to where you are in these different areas and assessing like how you can keep improving in them. But I think that this time next year, we'll probably be able to come back and like see where we are with some of this stuff, hopefully.
Yeah, I like it a lot. And like I said, some of these are things I've been working on all year. And now I'm just like, I'm just going to leave that shit here. Because I think a lot of times we can say, I'm trying to do that, or I'm doing this. No, you're just doing it. Just do it. Just let it go. Just stop.
I've been talking about taking more action for like 3 years. Because my friend who does the Christmas parties, like we're supposed to like, write the things we want to leave behind. And I do every time. But it's also important for me to recognize that strides have been made, like, letting go of that or moving in different directions. And so it is a process. It's not just like, you come up with your resolutions and everything's just different. So we got to put the work in and we're going to keep moving on it. But let us know this week if you have any other things that you think we should have on the list, things to leave behind this year, and just where you stand with some of these things.
Yeah, what's on your list? What are you leaving behind in 2019? We would love to hear. At Carlie's Couch on Instagram and Twitter, and carliescouch.com. If you want to send us a note, like a private note about what you're leaving behind, don't necessarily want to put it on social media. We're here for that too. And then did you have a shout out this week?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so on to the question of
shout
the week.
Shout out y'all for making it to 2020, I guess.
We appreciate y'all. We do. We really appreciate y'all. Shout out to Kiara's dad for being one of our day ones. So this week's question is, we're talking about leaving things behind, so it's only right. What are you creating space for?
I am creating space for less effort, more people and less effort.
More people and less effort. I like that. That's cool. It's funny you say more people. I feel like in November and most of October, I was like, I don't want to be around people. In December, I'm like, people, all the people.
Oh, I don't
everywhere.
mean like everybody people, but
I mean like
So
the
that's
people that I
different.
care about.
Oh,
like
okay.
spending time, like intentional time. I didn't even want to see y'all last month, but this month I've seen a lot of people a lot that I care about. Not everybody.
yeah, that's not what I meant with mine. But
What do you mean?
when I said I'm creating space for less effort and more people, for me, I'm referring to developing the systems to work with more people that bring on less effort for me with my work.
I like that a lot. I am creating brave spaces for people to learn to love themselves and to become their best self through the programming that I do, through my friendships, through this podcast, through all of my intentional work. Like those are the spaces that I'm creating.
Okay.
So what are you creating space for? Also hit us up, let us know for the question of the week at Carlie's Couch.
Yeah, and Happy New Year, guys.
Happy New
Enjoy.
Year.
Be responsible.
Please.
Bye.
Bye, y'all.